Today I hammer home the final nail in the Phantasm coffin. Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I am taking a look at Phantasm RaVager, the last of the Phantasm franchise movies. This was made in 2016, a full 18 years after the last movie, which was Phantasm 4 Oblivion, made in 1998. Why did this movie get made? I have a feeling it was less about continuing the franchise, less about explaining the mythos, less about finding out what happened to the world and to Mike and to anything related to the last few movies, and more of a love song and a final farewell to Reggie as a character and to Angus Scrimm as an actor. I really get the impression, as morbid as this sounds, I believe it was with the most noble of intentions, to be perfectly honest. But I have a feeling that the filmmakers knew that Angus Scrimm would not be around forever, and that the clock was ticking on his ability to star in a movie before he passed. And I think that there was some level of, not capitalization, that sounds dirty, but seizing the opportunity to give one last hurrah, as well as say goodbye to the Reggie character. And for a franchise that was made with love, and I have not been totally on board with Phantasm. I've been very clear and honest about that. I speak my feelings, even if they're not, totally flattering. But I do believe in my heart of hearts that this franchise and the movies within were made with love. I like that, they decided to bring them back one more time, one more hurrah to say goodbye. There's a part of me that really genuinely likes that. But that part of me is not the part of me that scores movies objectively and tries to come up with a fair scoring system for all movies to be judged against one another without a whole lot of heart entering into it. That is saved for my commentary right here. But to get into those scores and to stone cold my heart, let's get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. The plot of this one, I gave a 4 out of 25. I'm starting harshly already. But regardless, this was not a terribly coherent movie. This borrowed a lot from the first one in that it bounced back and forth between realities and timelines and so on. But I think that where the first one did it with a deft hand and a sense of not overdoing it, this one was just constantly barraging the audience with bleed-throughs of reality and bleed-throughs of timelines and bouncing back and forth. And I get it that the Reggie character, who is absolutely, at this point, front and center, the main character, for good or ill, he is. And I get it that he was supposed to be disoriented as he made this journey, and the audience was brought to a level of disoriented along with him. And also in that, I would say that on the plus side, as disorienting as it was, I don't think it ever fully went off the rails. This was definitely not an absolute mess, but it was disorienting along with the character in a way that I think the first one handled better. But moreover, what wound up happening with the Reggie character, this whole back and forth of realities journey led him to, was, as a storyline, a bit of a mess. There was just so much left unexplained and on the floor that I really never got behind any of the plot of what was going on. The mythos as the Phantasm franchise is still totally unresolved as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to be doing a franchise wrap-up deep dive as soon as I finish recording this. That will go into a bit more, total spoiler territory here. But regardless, 4 out of 25 for the plot. The disorienting factor, not so much of a bad thing, but the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of meat behind it, The intent, I gave a 16 out of 25. This is kind of where the heart comes back into play, just because when I grade the intent, it is not necessarily a noble thing. If it was set out to be a cash grab, if it was set out to be a purposefully bad movie, this is where I pull myself back, and even if I don't like what the intent was, even if I think that it wasn't noble, even if I think that it was just a miserable reason to make a movie, I set up what the intent was trying to be, and then the score is judged based on how successful it was at that. And I'm pleased to say that in this case, I'm able to align myself with this one. As far as making a Phantasm movie that continues the storyline, it really didn't, in my opinion. But from the standpoint of making a movie as a love song goodbye to Reggie, to Angus Scrimm, one last hurrah for the fans, I can get behind that. And I do believe that that is ultimately, I would say almost entirely, what this movie was intending to do. And in that, I would say that it succeeded fairly darn well. So 16 out of 25 for that. I don't mind giving plenty O points for that endeavor, and I do find it to be a noble one. The acting, I gave a 6 out of 25. The actors themselves were getting shoehorned into caricatures of their characters. At this point, Reggie Bannister is not trying to bring depth to the Reggie character. There's not a lot of range to work with. He is the ice cream man with 4 barrels of awesomeness, and that is it. So there's not a whole lot for me to judge anymore. I mean, at some point over the years and over the attempts and over the movies, you do start to become a caricature of yourself. We saw it with Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams' character in, especially Ash versus Evil Dead. But in that, I would say that that's almost appropriate for the Ash Williams character to just start becoming a cartoon of himself over the years. And Bruce Campbell definitely made that charming. Reggie was just, it felt out of place. He felt a bit tired, and I don't know. It just didn't work for me. Not to say that I've been a fan of the Reggie action hero in the first place, so watching him slip into this caricature of himself role was just kind of further going down the rabbit hole. Everything else was fairly mediocre. All the supporting cast was just kind of there. I think that they saw it as one last hurrah, and they treated it as such, as opposed to really bringing their A game into it. It was more, everybody kind of approached their roles and their characters with almost a sense of mournfulness, which makes sense in the context of why the movie was being made, but at the same time didn't really lend itself to quality performances that stand on their own. So yeah, 6 out of 25. The technical, I gave a 14 out of 25. This definitely slid down a bit from the previous ones. Yes, this had a higher budget, higher dollar value, and had more impressive attempts at visuals, but where this succeeded in practical effects, this also tried to incorporate a lot of CG, and I would say that it was not terribly successful at it. This was very low budget, less than stellar CGI work that I'm just not sold on. It definitely looked pretty cheesy, and if I had seen that in the early 2000s, then it would have been okay, but in 2016 it was rushed out the door, and it showed. So yeah, whatever points it had for solid blood effects and gore and body effects and practicals, it slid down in that regard. So a 14 out of 25 there, which gives us a total score of 40 out of 100 points. About on par with how these movies have been going for a few movies now. And that wraps up the Phantasm franchise. How I feel about this one is it was a good bookend. I think that I would have gotten more out of it if I had been a full Phantasm fan by this point, but the movies just never capture that for me. I'm going to go into that more in the deep dive, just kind of, it's going to be a quick wrap up, but I want to be able to freely discuss things as a final summary without being inhibited by spoiler talk. So look for that if you decide you want to watch that. Otherwise, I thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we move on to more individual movies. Actually, tomorrow is going to be Thanksgiving, so I will be reviewing the turkey slasher classic, Thanksgiving. And so I look forward to seeing you then. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.